Good afternoon. This is Hope at Home. I have as my guest today Julie Domogalla, and this is Alex Treitler. I'm the Executive Director of Children's Grief Connection. Julie is a longtime volunteer with Hearts of Hope Camp and leads adult groups. And today she's going to be speaking on the topic, Grief as Unique as You Are. So let me hand it over to you, Julie. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello. My name is Julie Domogalla, and I am a thanatologist. That means the person that studies death and dying and bereavement. I have a master's degree in thanatology. I also am the owner of an organization, a company called Under Blue Skies. And we offer a grief hermitage and workshops and education and accompaniment, just spending time with people who are grieving. And you can find us under underblueskiesmn.com.
Thank you, Julie. In our conversation initially, when we were talking about having this session, you spoke about this word normal in relation to grief and mentioned that you thought that saying normal can be kind of problematic. You also said that you don't really like the expression the new normal. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So when we talk about grief, we always try to define it. And when you're in the acute grief or a sudden loss or any kind of loss, there's always like, how do I do this? How long will my grief last? And when is it going to be over? When is it going to turn back to normal? And that's really a fallacy that there is anything that's normal. When you have lost your loved one and you're grieving, everything is different. Everything has changed. And every part of your life is touched by that. But ultimately, no one can write down a laundry list of what you need to do to be done with your grieving. And there's also a question of, do we ever stop grieving that loved one? Is there just always a place in your heart where you carry them? I just want us to know that everybody who grieves differently. So we need to be responsive to all of them.
When we first spoke, you mentioned that you've really spent much of your life. You grew up on a farm and you've spent much of your life living in rural communities. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering what you could say about how you would describe some of the patterns and traditions around grieving, especially in rural communities.
Well, it's kind of hard for me to even differentiate that, honestly, because I have lived rurally for all but about 7 years of my life. But I think the difference is the culture. And I think we forget that people who live rurally, who live on the farm or who live in the country, live a very different life than those that live in an urban setting. Rather than looking at how the traditions are different, I think we need to look at how the cultures are different. In my culture, in my rural, I learned about birth and death and sex and all those things on the farm very young.
So life and death are an integral part of your daily life. But in the world that we're in now, it seems like things are continually changing. We don't really know what's going to happen from day to day. Would you say that the way people are handling this current uncertainty and the situation with the coronavirus and quarantine, is that different?
I think the biggest thing that we're facing rurally is, there's a lack of services anyway for people who are grieving. There are 2 grief support groups that meet in my county, and they meet once a month. Where you live should not be determined whether you can get help or not. Your physical address should not be a challenge. I live in a county where there are no ventilators, none.
Wow.
So if anybody that I know gets the COVID-19 and needs a ventilator, they will be in a different county.
Yeah.
So those are some of the realities that we live with. And then we deal with technology. Now, technology we're doing right now is just great. But there are a lot of people that live rurally that don't have the bandwidth. So that's been a big challenge for them.
What are some of the things that you would advise people to do during this time, whether you're out in the country or on the countryside in a rural setting, or if you're in a city? What are some of the things that you think can be helpful?
You know, this is one of the things that people often talk about is, you know, is you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you can help someone else. And I think that's really very important for us at this time. But the reality is we need to take care of ourselves. First and foremost, grief is difficult. It's difficult, it's demanding, and it's emotional. And now we're compounding this fear and vulnerability on top of this with the pandemic. So we really have to be very smart in taking care of ourselves. Get some rest, eat healthy food, go outside and soak in some sunshine, do some physical activity, take your kids out, put a puzzle together on a day with your family, or may play a game. Just read and sleep and rest and sing and dance and whatever works for you. Also, the other thing I didn't mention is get away from that dang TV and that stupid phone. You know, if you listen once in a while, you'll catch up what's going on, but you really don't need to listen to every single. Your soul isn't meant for that, I don't think. You really need to take care of yourself and ask for what you need.
How do you ask for the things that you need?
Well, if you're fortunate to have another adult in the family,
Mm-hmm.
you can take turns. And you can just say, Alex, I need 3 hours to do whatever I want all by myself. It's difficult when you're a one-parent family, and now you can't get grandma and grandpa to come in.
Right.
That's not going to work. But perhaps you can, you know, allow them, you know, screen time and say, can you all, you know, agree to watch this movie while mom is over here or dad is over here, and please just, you know, try to give some space as much as you can.
Okay, well, those are really good things to be thinking about. Caring for yourself physically by staying active outdoors, taking care of your body by eating well and sleeping and all of those things. Spiritually by maybe meditating or taking time out and not thinking about things. And I think it would be really helpful to hear more about how it is that you've handled your grief, and if there are any practices that you discovered that you have used and that you continue to use.
I had a son, Kevin, who died at 5 weeks. I was 24 years old, and it was very, very hard. I insisted on taking the intubation tube out of his body, and the doctor agreed. And so when the nurse went to remove the tape from his face, I said, no, I need to. And I don't know where that came from, but it was my baby, and I was going to take him, free him. So I did. I pulled the tape, and then I pulled out the intubation tube, and they brought him. They helped me get to him to lift him up out of the incubator, and then I held him rocked him till he died, which was a very short time. Then less than 2 years later, my daughter Jill was born prematurely, and she lived for 2 days. And I removed the tape from her mouth and pulled the intubation tube and gave her a bath and held her until she died. So I was a very young mother with a lot of loss. And I was very broken, and it was a very deep dark place. And I didn't know what to do and where to go. And so there was two things that were really monumental in my life that changed for me. One was I did find a grief counselor, and I spent some time with her, and went back after my daughter died. So both after my son and my daughter, went back and did some work with her, and that was very helpful. I had to drive 100 miles each way to make that happen after my daughter died. So it was a significant, but I knew I needed something. There weren't any groups. There wasn't anything for me. You know, I couldn't find anything. The other thing that happened was I decided that I needed to walk. And so in 1988, after my daughter died, I said to my then husband, I'm going for a walk. And I started walking. And I walked every day. And I've been still walking. And sometimes I walk a different path, but a lot of times I walk the same. And I look at the changes of the seasons. I look for when the Canadian geese come back and they are standing on the ice, and then the next day they're swimming in the water because the ice is melted. And I think there's just something about the pattern of walking and saying, this is what I need in order to be the best person for my family and for my friends and for anyone that comes in my path. And it's not selfish. That's what it is. It's self-care. Sometimes my walk is contemplative and quiet. And sometimes it's like fast and hard and marked paces. And it all flows with what is happening today, what it is right now. Just find something physical. It really does help, I think. Find something physical for yourself. It'll help you sleep better too.
So finally, I'd be curious to hear more about your business, Under Blue Skies. Could you tell us a little bit about why it was that you started your business and how you hope to support people who are grieving through the work that you're doing?
Yeah, well, I love where I live. I also have had several experiences at hermitages for when I was writing and when I do write. And so if nothing else, this space was going to be my writing space. And I thought, I want to share this with other people. So it's a little 1-bedroom house for people to just come and stay. You get beautiful eastern sunrises in the morning. You have to get up early though. And if you look out to the south, the horses are often, right in the pasture, and it's just a lot of opportunity to just get away. And I have some restorative practices. We have a yoga master that'll come and work with them. We work with the horses. I have art therapy. I'm doing photography and meditative walks where we'll just walk in silence and go through the woods and just be. It's a beautiful place.
Well, we've had a great conversation. Thank you so much, Julie. And
thank you.
I think it's a real gift that you're a part of Children's Grief Connection. I appreciate all the work that you do with us and for all of the people who participate in the camps. And you've got such a vast amount of knowledge and kindness and love also that you share with others. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.